Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Atelston, Fitzgerald, Holder the First. Blessing you all once again with my immaculate magnificence. Look at my fantastic aesthetics. Don't you all find it appealing? It's quite a luxury you'll have in a lifestyle like mine. Whew. So I'm up at the Hollywood Reservoir. One of the reservoir. It's in Hollywood in the north. I think in the northeastern side. Can't remember specifically. Nevertheless, you all ever heard of the term semantics? Semantics sounds like semantics in linguistics. Semantics is a subset of linguistics. It deals with meaning. Primarily the pervasiveness of ambiguity lies in semantics, which is a subset of linguistics. Cymatics sounds like semantics, but cymatics actually is the visualization of sound. Basically, this designer instrument called a Cymascope, C-Y-M-A-S-C-O-P. Google it. That allows them to have a visualization, which is kind of ironic, visualization of sound. If you can visualize sound, then I'm assuming, because sound's rivalry is light, only because they both travel, they're synonymous in how they travel, because they both are kind of like this kind of wavelength. Sound is a expanding spiral, so to speak, but I don't want to confuse everyone. But light and sound are still two different things because their medium in which they travel is completely different. Light doesn't need a medium called light travel in packets of photons, which are considered massless particles. That's why it's allowed them to travel at the speed of light, a velocity at the speed of light at which they propagate, which is a fundamental speed limit of the universe, right? My point for saying this is, Cymascope gives you a visual perspective. They could visualize sound, meaning that when a song is sound travels different to light. Sound is when there's an impact, it creates energy that vibrates, and there's a collision between air molecules. It's like I push Tom, Tom push Jane, Jane push Mary. Domino effect. That is a metaphor to help you encapsulate what happens when sound travels at 700 miles an hour. But the whole point for saying this, the Cymascope gives you visually encapsulate sound, right? But the way it's done is from a sinusoidal perspective. I don't know if I'm using the right term. Let me stay away from terms that I'm not too familiar with or that I could put in context with the audience. But it's an intriguing phenomenon because now we get to, from phonology is a branch of linguistics subset that deals with sound. Phonetics deal with sound and phonology deal with sound. But phonetics deals with how sound is produced from the vocal cords, whereas phonology deals with the meaning and sound of words itself. Now we could embrace the figurative aspects of linguistics now, using the visual aspect of semantics. We could visualize sarcasm now. When there's a sarcastic tone, or an ironic tone, or a condescension, or what's the name, monotony, or any form of figurative devices that's contingent on rhetoric, the form of persuasion. Now we could transition from the tonal visualization to a visual analytical standpoint, which I find intriguing now. I contacted the professor and he forwarded me some information. One of my quandary or contention was the issue of whether this Cymascope and this visual perspective of sound is able to encapsulate things like sharps and flats in musical key. And two, can it differentiate between octaves, right? It's an intriguing phenomenon because now we could analyze sound visually if we study in physics. Now we could visually see the wavelengths. We could see the crest, we could see the trough, we could see the velocity, we could see how it propagates, we could see the positive and negative amplitude. We could see the number of frequencies that emits the level of the number of hertz. We could actually maybe form a visualization. It's a geometrical visualization. And I think the whole process is done through sinusoidal energy. I'm not sure what it is. I have to research that. But my only pet peeve or contention is if sound travel at 700 miles an hour, it seems, you know what, let me forget this video. There's something about this whole concept I haven't really internalized. So I need to put this into more perspective. So maybe my point is, do a little research on semantics. It's intriguing. It's very intriguing. Now we could study phonology from linguistics, from a visual perspective, the sound. We could study musical notation visually, and we could study the physics of sound, and all the way up to the speed of light. Now, if you could visualize sound, then we could hear light. The divisor mechanism that allows us to hear light will give us a whole new perspective to analyze light, because we know light is an equilibrium and a paradox, because it's a wave-particle duality, which makes it ambiguous. But that's the paradox, because it's two things at once, but it's mutually exclusive simultaneously. And plus it's an electromagnetic radiation, which means it's an equilibrium, because at some given point in the past, electricity and magnetism was considered two mutually exclusive or contrasting forces in nature. Right? Now they work together as a form of equilibrium. You all know equilibrium, where two opposing forces balances itself, the equation, and it travels in that. So and we know light consists of multiple colors, but these colors derive from the nanometer of frequencies. When we measure sound, we deal with hertz. But once we measure in the speed, the wavelengths of light, we deal with nanometers. Nanometer is one nanometer is a billionth of a hertz. Nanometers now is the unit of a length between the wavelength, right? That's billions of hertz per wavelength. And the shorter the wavelength, as it goes higher in terahertz, but then the number system goes down in nanometers, because nanometers measures between the wavelength, right? It goes higher, right? The color. I mean, not really color, it's energy, It's energy. So as the wavelength gets shorter, the color changes from red being the lowest to blue being the highest. Now, colors doesn't really exist, It is our retina, and that's a whole different subject. Really, we are interpreting energy. But my point for saying this was the ability to hear light would give us a whole new perspective from an analytical standpoint to understand the phenomenon of light. I'm not sure what this whole subject was centered around, because I just segue and deviate into so many different dynamics. So yeah, maybe I'll upload this video on YouTube, maybe not. But then we're going to discuss the multifacets of light, why an apple appears red when it is really not actually red, but it is a reflection, and how light diffracts itself, permeates the air, and how all the colors of the light is absorbed, and the ones that's not absorbed is reflected back to our eye, and how our eye and the retina and our eye interpret this energy, this high frequency energy